Have you ever started talking and realized you have no idea what you're going to say? Yeah, I've been there, done that. I once gave a 5-minute answer to a simple question, and by the end, even I was confused. And I'm the one who said it. Here's the thing about speaking clearly. It isn't about talking more, it's about thinking better. Just like this bow tie. You can't just twist it randomly and hope it looks good. You need a clear plan. Fold and loop and adjust and tighten. Same thing with speaking. Pause, plan, then speak. Stick around. Today, I'll show you how to organize your thoughts in English so you can sound smart, smooth, and confident, even when you're put on the spot. And hey, if you've got a question about speaking more clearly or structuring your thoughts, drop it in the chat. I'll answer a few live at the end of the show. Let's jump into it. Let me tell you about Jin. Super smart, bilingual, super qualified. But every time she spoke in meetings, she'd ramble. Her ideas were good, but nobody could follow them. And after one presentation, her manager had had enough. He said, "Look, you had some good points, but it was hard to tell what you were getting at." Ouch. So we worked on one thing, organizing her thoughts before she spoke. I gave her a few simple techniques, and then 2 weeks later, she gave another update, clear and confident and structured. And her manager said, "Hey, nice job today. Super clear." It was the same Jin, just a sharper delivery. And that's the moment things started to click, not just for her manager, but for Jin too. She realized that clarity isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. So, how do you build it? That's exactly what we're diving into next. Because once you learn to organize your thoughts, your words will start doing exactly what you want them to. So, our first strategy. Let's talk about strategy. If you want to speak clearly in English, the first step is not vocabulary. It's clarity. You've got to know what you're trying to say before you open your mouth. So we're going to cover 4 quick methods to organize your thoughts before you speak. This is especially helpful in meetings and interviews or presentations. So, focus on the structure and make the presentation, make your message easy for everyone to understand. So, tip number 1, we call this the 1-sentence summary. Before you speak, ask yourself, if I had to say this in 1 sentence, what would it be? That is your core message, the heart of what you're trying to communicate. So let me give you an example from a client I worked with. We'll call him Carlos. Carlos, he was giving weekly updates on a software rollout. His team was doing great work, but every time he spoke, he'd lose the room within 30 seconds. He'd start a timeline, then jump to a technical issue, then mention some feedback from the marketing team, all in one breath. So we changed one thing. Before every update, he wrote down a 1-sentence summary. And so one day he started with this: we're on schedule, but one task is behind because of a supplier delay. And immediately everyone understood. So from there, he could go into details, but his audience already had the big picture. And as a result, meetings got shorter, but communication got sharper. So before you speak, pause and find that one clear sentence. It's a small habit, but it makes a huge difference. All right, my next tip is called the rule of 3. People really love patterns, and the magic number 3 is truly amazing. It's easy to remember, it's easy to follow, and it feels complete. So, let me tell you about Amira. She was a marketing coordinator who had trouble keeping people engaged during her updates. So, there's that formula we're going to go into. Intro, 3 points, and then close. So, she would list off everything she worked on, jumping from project to project, and people would lose track every time. So, we introduced her to the rule of 3. Before each meeting, she grouped her talking points into 3 categories. So one day she said, here's my view. We've seen growth in 3 sectors: customer engagement, product quality, and brand awareness. Let me break each one down. So that helped people to stay with her, and they really perked up. It kept them engaged in the process. Why? Because the structure made the message easy to digest and easier to remember. So follow that simple formula. This works for everything from presentations to updates to even everyday conversations. Simple, structured, memorable. And most importantly, it helps people remember what you said. So try that 3-point rule, okay? Next, connectors and signposts. Okay, now these are like verbal road signs because they help to guide your listener. So let me tell you about Leo. Here's another guy, a project manager who was great at planning, but he really struggled to explain things in meetings. He would jump straight into updates without guiding his listeners through the structure. And as a result, people were confused. People asked questions that he had already answered, or they missed his most important points. So I started him using simple signposts to change everything. So he would begin with, first, I'll walk you through the timeline. Then we'll look at the key risks. Finally, I'll explain the client's feedback. And people were able to follow along. The questions started to drop, and the feedback started to improve. So you can use these phrases just like that. First of all, then, let's move on to, the main takeaway is, bop, bop, bop. All right? So, for example, first I'll explain the challenge. Then I'll share our approach. And finally, I'll show the results. These markers are a game changer. They will help your audience and you stay on track and build confidence in your message. People will have confidence in what you're trying to tell them. All right. 4, here's our 4th tip. Give yourself time to think. Here's the trick. If you get caught off guard in a question, use buffer phrases. What's a buffer phrase? That's basically a cheat. Something like, that's a great question. Let me think for a moment. Or, oh, okay, I see where you're going with that. One of my clients, Ethan, we'll call him Ethan, was a software engineer. And I coached him because he was terrified of Q&A sessions, questions and answers. He told me, I always freeze up when someone asks a question I didn't prepare for. Does this ever happen to you? So that's what we practiced, using buffer phrases. Just a few simple words to buy some time and breathe. And that small habit helped Ethan shift his mindset. It wasn't about having every answer ready in his head. It was about giving himself permission to think. And so one day during a big demo, a senior executive asked him something complex and unexpected. But instead of panicking, Ethan smiled and said, "That's a great question. Give me a second to think about it." Then he paused, mentally, sorted his answer, and delivered it smoothly. After the meeting, his boss said, "Wow, you handled that like a pro." So this gives you 2 to 5 seconds to think. And that is often all you need to mentally map your answer, find your core message, and then respond with confidence. It's much better to take a short pause than give a confusing monologue. Silence, when well used, can be a sign of thoughtfulness, not weakness. So, what's the big takeaway? Clear thinking equals clear speaking. When you speak English, especially in professional settings, you don't need fancy words. You need organized thoughts. Just like when you're building a house. Think about it like this. You don't start by decorating the windows. You start with the blueprint. And so your message needs a solid frame before you fill in the details. I once had a student named Mira who worked in HR. She spoke very confidently, but her updates always felt like a whirlwind. People nodded, but clearly they didn't retain anything. And so we changed one habit. She started writing out her main point before every meeting. And that one sentence became her guide. So within a month, people were quoting her ideas back to her. Her message actually stuck because it was clear. So, before your next conversation or meetings, try planning just one thing you want to say clearly. Use one of today's tips and watch it make a big difference. People listen when they can follow your message, and they follow you, they remember you. So, here's one thing that you can try out. Use the rule of 3 or a one-sentence summary in your next conversation. Keep it simple, keep it clear, and watch how people respond. And if this episode helped, I'm getting ahead of myself. If this episode helped, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who wants to speak better English. And hey, check out the full blog post at allaboutenglishmastery.com. You can also find the link in the description. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter where I've got more practical English tips waiting for you there. And if something from today's episode got you thinking, or you've got a question about how to use one of those tips, drop it in the chat. I'll be sticking around after the Mastery Minute to answer a few of your questions live. And speaking of the Mastery Minute, are you ready for today's idiom? Today's idiom is get your ducks in a row. So back when I was about, I don't know, maybe 10 years old, I was playing one of those carnival games where you had to shoot, bing, at tiny metal ducks sliding across a track. So the trick was, if the ducks weren't lined up just right, you couldn't hit enough to win, and you'd waste all your shots and walk away with no prize. Probably a melted piece of candy anyway, and that would be nothing but regret. So this memory stuck with me because that's what this idiom is all about. Get your ducks in a row. It means to prepare and organize everything before you take action, whether it's for a meeting, a big presentation, or even just answering a tough question. So, for example, you might say, before presenting the report, I need to get my ducks in a row. So, next time you're about to speak, pause, breathe, and line up your thoughts. You'll sound sharp and not scattered. We are just about to wrap it up. Coming up on Wednesday's episode, we'll dive into one of the most common and important English situations: introducing yourself. Whether you're meeting someone for the first time, joining a new team, or starting a presentation, how you introduce yourself matters. So I'll show you how to craft a short but powerful self-introduction that sounds natural and confident. You don't want to miss it. So thank you so much for watching 15-Minute Mastery. If today's tips gave you a little more confidence or clarity, that's a win. Remember, every great speaker starts by getting their thoughts in order, and you are already on that path. So keep practicing, keep growing, and know that you're not alone in this journey. You've already taken a great step today. Keep showing up, keep sharpening your message, and the clarity will come. And with that, I am Dennis, and I'll see you next time. And let's see, do we have anything in the chat today? No, the chat's pretty quiet. I must be the world's best teacher because nobody asked a question. So, speaking of questions, here's a little bonus tip while I wait to see if anybody drops any comments in. If you come to the end of a presentation, one of the worst things that you can do is say, are there any questions? If you're giving a talk in person in front of people or to a live audience, when you say, are there any questions? That is a closed question. It's a closed-ended question. It means that the only answer can be yes or no. And most people will always say no. So what I like to do is make it an open-ended question. So I change that question from, are there any questions, to, what questions can I answer for you? Or you might even give it a little prelude, like, I've covered a lot of information, so what questions can I answer for you today? Try it. Give it a shot. You might be surprised at how many questions you actually have asked at your next meeting or presentation. All right, and with that, it's getting pretty late. I will talk to you on Wednesday. See you next time.